Welcome to the Good Rookies podcast. My name's Fahim.
My name is Nelly J, y'all, and we are Good Bookies.
That's right.
What's going on, everybody? Happy Good Tuesday. And guess what? It's episode 84.
84.
84. Lord have mercy. Listen, man, Fahim, I'm so excited for our guest today. We haven't seen him since, I guess since 2021. That was a while ago. Please introduce who we got.
So let me add to that. When you say 2021, he's an OG in our books. He's been around since episode 27. I have him down as and here we are, 84. So he's been around with us. I'll just leave a lot. We'll definitely cover him for the culture, but he's got a lot to bring to the table. And might add, still Woodbridge's finest. Let's welcome Giancarlo Aulino to the podcast today.
Giancarlo.
Appreciate that. Woodbridge's finest. That's a good one. I'm gonna run with that now.
You said Woodbridge's finest. No, man, honestly, it's always great to have you on this podcast. Like you're someone that I will say, like we haven't really seen in a while, but you're also someone that I follow, like we always kind of keep in contact with what you're doing, what's going on. So like, I think it's really great to have you back on the podcast, but we're going to really highlight you more and for the culture. But, I want to kind of give you a little sample here because I know you're a big wrestler, right? Big wrestler. And so I want you to make a few predictions for the folks who don't really follow the current wrestling, I guess WWE, but give me your top two wrestlers for the men's side and women's side and why, for the folks who don't know what's happening in that world.
Sorry, Giancarlo, before you do, are you a big wrestler or are you a big wrestling fan?
Oh, wrestling fan, yeah. No,
okay, so you don't wrestle. Okay.
He's a wrestling.
I'm a fan.
I'm
a fan, though. Yeah.
Sorry, he's a big wrestling fan. He writes for WWE. Okay, at FiredUp Net. So, please give us your top wrestlers for this year that you predict may overtake the current. But give us your thoughts on that right now.
Yeah, so for sure, like Brock Lesnar is every year he seems to reinvent himself now, which is. After 20 years, it's remarkable to see. I think Brock Lesnar is at the top of that list. Wow. And I think Roman Reigns on the men's side, what he's been able to do, they're going to be headlining WrestleMania this year. So those are two of the biggest stars that have reinvented their characters and completely went the opposite direction. Brock Lesnar is now the good guy, so to speak, and Roman Reigns a bad guy. So those two are definitely for the men's side. For the women's side, it differentiates a little bit. I still think Sasha Banks is one. Every program she seems to be in, it draws a lot of audience backlash on if she's a bad person on TV. But if she's a baby face that everyone roots for, the crowd gets behind her. So I think her and it's hard to go against Charlotte Flair too, Ric Flair's daughter. So those are two of the top females, I think, in WWE.
Honestly, I'm so happy you mentioned her because I was like going to say, yeah, Ric Flair has a daughter that wrestles, y'all. If y'all did not know, he does. So please, and for any, of course, WWE information updates, follow Giancarlo. Will have information for sure. But we're going to talk more about these items and these matches and for the culture. Fahim, let's go to our first hot topic for today, brother.
Okay, before we do, real quick, I want to ask, since we're on wrestling, I see AEW. How does that factor in? Just real quick, how does that factor in to the wrestling scene?
I think they're definitely, I think, number two in terms of how big they are. Their owners, the Khan family, they actually are more wealthier net worth than Vince McMahon. So it just depends how much money they put into it. Their family owns the Jacksonville Jaguars and Fulham in the second tier in England. So they're going to be in the Premier League next year. So there's a lot of money that flows down. They have the TV deal in Turner. So they're on TBS on Wednesdays and TNT on Fridays. So they have a great aspect there in the market share. Just WWE, they've been around so long. They're public on the stock market. And WWE goes into other countries. Like they have the Saudi Arabia deal that pays them $50 million per show. So right now, WWE, it's hard to overtake them. But AEW, they do offer a great alternative to that.
No, for sure. And I found that they're also based in the States. That's really dope. But yeah, they're second, man. So the AEW, that's the All Elite Wrestling, guys. So for those who don't know, it's a whole new world. I mean, I think a lot of us followed wrestling when we were younger, but some people, kind of forgot, don't follow it. But some, I know, the heavy betting in that world. So again, I want to talk more about that and for the culture, Fahim. So let's move on to the next topic.
All right. So with the UFC, it's great to have you on here because I came across this. I thought it'd be very interesting to discuss since this is more your lane. Paige VanVleet, no,
VanZant.
Paige VanZant, or is it VanZant?
I don't know. Ha, you don't know either? Great.
Yeah, I think it's both.
Okay.
Thank you, Giancarlo.
Yeah.
So she's left the UFC because they just don't pay enough. Which I find is interesting because it's not the first time I've heard about finance in the UFC. This being your lane, I'm really interested to hear what you got to say.
Yeah, she's in an interesting spot. Like she had, I guess, the popularity up and down in her career, wins and losses wise. So she wasn't like the top 3 in the division, but she still got wins, and it was a tough out. Like she wasn't getting completely outclassed in her losses. So leaving the UFC in terms of like, they're not going to offer her, I think, the same amount of money they would some of their top pay-per-view draws. And there is a big gap in pay scale there because Conor McGregor, he deserves it. He brings in so much on pay-per-view. Jorge Masvidal has been a pay-per-view star, but then when you go down a bit to some of the other fighters, they're making like maybe 40,000 a show, 40,000 if they win. And Dana White's business model is completely different. So I think it's understandable why, and maybe some of the organizations outside the UFC, like a Bellator or PFL, they'll pay well. It's just you have to be a champion to get that kind of money.
Interesting. So, like, do you think it's because she is a woman or fighter, or is that just like any fighter UFC? If you're not like a major headline, then like the pay is not good.
Yeah, I don't think the pay is that great. Like, and I know some fighters have been vocal about it, but like Paige VanZant, let's say she went to the PFL, they offer a different pay scale. So they'll pay a fighter, let's say $20,000 or $100,000. Then they have this tournament that they do where it's like a playoff format. The winner of that tournament gets $1 million. So I think that's one of the big drawing points for a lot of them. Kayla Harrison was a big one now that she was a free agent that the UFC was actually going to offer millions of dollars to for a big fight. It didn't materialize because PFL came and matched the offer and then gave her more incentive to stay. So she has a chance where she's dominant in that division. And it makes sense. She can make $1 million, run through the lightweight division, win another tournament on top of her purse. And Bellator is another one. They do pay a little bit better than some might think. Like I've seen some fighters who weren't champions get like close to $300,000 for their fight. So they should be getting more though, considering what they do for a living.
No, for sure. And like what I find interesting about Paige VanZant, I want to say VanZant because it sounds fancy. She left UFC, but she's now like, she fought recently in the AEW. Yeah. And I'm assuming, she went to boxing and fighting there. So question, do we think we're going to see more MMA fighters kind of transition from that world into more of the wrestling world? Is that a common thing that we should suspect in the future?
I think so, especially now with more than one organization. Like before it was WWE, they would get the highest profile name to come in and they would do a one-off. But with Ronda Rousey going to WWE and now more of an opening there. We saw Cain Velasquez. He got a nice deal for when he first came in. But now with AEW, they're bringing a lot more MMA fighters in because they have a connection there with American Top Team in Florida. So Dan Lambert's a coach there. He's a big wrestling fan. And he has a lot of his fighters. Some of them I've seen 5 or 6 of them on one episode of AEW. And they took a liking to Paige VanZant, and it looks like she signed a lucrative deal there. So if she's going to make that kind of money, work one day a week in wrestling and keep her options open, I think it would make sense. And maybe when she gets enough money saved where she wants to go back into MMA, she's still young enough where she can make a run at that.
Yeah, I know you're right. And I think we're going to see a lot more of these, especially with the younger fighters, the ones who have built. I think Paige has a daughter or a baby. So, like this, or she's a mom. So, people have responsibilities, right? But one thing she did say was that UFC helped her build an actual name for herself, right? And I think for some fighters, maybe that is the goal, going to MMA, build some type of name and recognition, and then try to use that to leverage other opportunities. So, I mean, big up to her.
So she also started or was part of the Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship, which I find very interesting because whenever I hear this bare knuckle fighting, it just sounds much more dangerous. Taking shots, in boxing, you have the gloves, and UFC, you have the gloves. Bare knuckles, taking shots to the head. Now, I did look into the research of studies, and it's a lot less deaths than you actually think. It's very minimal. Like it's very rare. Sorry that would happen. But she left. There's a hiatus where she's went back to bare, or she wants or is thinking about going back to bare knuckle fighting. In regards to, so we just discussed three now. We have bare knuckle fighting, which is its own. We have AEW, which is zone wrestling, and then we have the UFC. Of the three of them, Giancarlo, which one? Because bare knuckle fighting, obviously, because I guess the risk of something happening, apparently the pay is a little bit more. Of the three, which one of these three would seem most favorable if someone's looking from a financial standpoint?
I think, I know from a financial standpoint, for a one-off, I've noticed a lot of former MMA fighters and some that are maybe on the cusp, like they got cut from the UFC, and instead of going to a regional promotion, they maximize their name recognition. They go to bare knuckle because, like you said there, I've seen so many fighters get paid a crazy amount of money, and I never thought it'd be this popular. But maybe right now it's still a niche market. I know some promoters that come out now, like Ken Shamrock was a recent one that he started his own, and as more recognizable names start getting into that market, maybe it gets to the level like the UFC where you have one dominant promotion. But I still think AEW, that's probably the safest. She knows if she's with an opponent that understands, okay, this night maybe my leg's bothering me, they'll work around it. She doesn't have to worry about putting herself physically at risk. And I think in pro wrestling she could control the actual outcome, and fighting you can't. So one bad injury there, and you're looking at the long-term effects, where in wrestling it might be a short-term effect there, but you can see the outcome and make sure you don't get out of it injured like that.
Are you familiar with Mike Perry? Does it sound familiar? Yeah. Okay. So he actually had confirmed, or he suggested, that Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship has paid him double than what he would have got at the UFC, which is interesting. One last thing, Ariel Helwani.
Yeah.
He apparently with Thriller, or it's Thriller. What's wrong with me today? Triller. Triller and him are looking of partnering somehow with Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship also. So once you have a name who's reputable in the space, speaking to your point, that could further help them in regards to their branding, which actually I think they need, because once you hear bare knuckle fighting, it's kind of hard to strip away the thought that it feels very barbaric, but if you have other reputable people in there, remember, even the UFC, when it started, however long ago when it started, it had to get over that stereotype of it being barbaric also, right? So they have a long way ahead. On the way out of this, I want to ask, what do you think the odds are that bare knuckle fighting gets over that hump of being seen as barbaric?
I think it's going to take the UFC too. They had so many years where they were banned from so many states in America and Canada. It was until 2011 where Ontario lifted a ban and they finally came to Rogers Center. So I think it's going to take a lot of time, but with bare knuckle, it's just going to come down to, once they have a skill level and people actually see the athletes and hear them talk, and it's going to take somebody they can market around, where they can present them to an ESPN or Fox and say, okay, this is a guy's a representative and ambassador of our sport, and we can get behind it. But if you're going to have somebody just get into fights at press conferences and all that stuff, it might turn them away from it. in NHL, just as another one, like when a fight breaks out, it's bare knuckle and they're on ice. So just even more heightens the risk factor, and people lose their minds for that. So if they can capitalize on something, they might have something there.
That's true. One thing with the NHL, when they do take shots each other on the ice, they only take shots for maybe, I don't know, not too long, 5 seconds, 10 seconds maximum before the referees come in. With bare knuckle fighting, I've never seen one, but I can imagine it's going to be a lot more punishment, which would actually, I think, mean a lot more blood. And if you're getting a lot more blood, then you're getting into it's kind of hard to not look like you're barbaric when all you're seeing is blood all the time. I'm assuming. I haven't watched it myself. Have you seen any bare knuckle fighting at all?
I've seen once, like a few times, like just on social media, like just the outcome of a fight, but like I'm not gonna, like I haven't bought a pay-per-view to watch it. So it's not at that point yet where I'm gonna go there. But in the future, maybe like if they have something where it starts to get popular and like respected in that marketplace, I might. But right now, yeah, I'm with you. Like I'm probably just looking at social media, what happened, what's the result, who won, and maybe a replay. But yeah, I'm not gonna watch it on TV.
Right. All right. Appreciate that, Giancarlo. So tell you what, it's about that time we go to For the Culture.
For the culture. We like to highlight individuals that are for the culture. And today we get to highlight Mr. Giancarlo Aulino.
That's right.
So Giancarlo, first of all, bro, I don't know how you sleep because you are a contributor for Vibe 105 Toronto and Vibe 105 Sports. You co-host a podcast called In the Zone Podcast. You're a writer for MMA and UFC. You report on York United FC and Toronto FC. Like, sir, that's a lot of work. But clearly you are for the culture because someone like you, like you're giving so much in regards to the sports that you love, but also contributing this to the people of Toronto. So big up to you for sure. So quick question. Out of all the roles that you do right now, it's going to be hard. Which one do you enjoy the most? Out of all,
it's a tough one.
I
like
know.
They're all equally rewarding, but like I would say just like interviewing, like I enjoy this. Like I'm sure you both, like when you do podcasts and stuff, like just conversations, enjoy that part more. Like writing, obviously, like it has its perks, like you go to the games and stuff, but there's something different when you actually talk to the player, do like a one-on-one interview. Like I've interviewed a few players now, and you get more out of that than just a post-game scrum where they're most of the time like just saying the same answers, like, yeah, we had a bad game, the ball like wasn't going our way tonight. But like doing a one-on-one interview, like you hear their stories, how they started, some of them even soccer players that I got to talk to, some of them young ages go to Europe, and you get to hear their experiences. A lot of them have culture shock there, and just how they get by with not being homesick or how they deal with it at a young age. So I enjoyed those conversations more than writing about a game that happened. Yeah.
I'm laughing at your comment about, people just give us the same generic, the media training answers, right? It's like everyone knows what to say after a game. Be correct. Don't say too much. Don't say too little. Keep it right down the lane. Out of all the athletes that you've interviewed, which was a story that really kind of like you can relate to based on what they said to you?
Oh, that's a tough one.
I know.
An athlete, I would have to say, in terms of just like more of a broadcaster standpoint, like I interviewed Mike Goldberg. He was a former voice of the UFC, and he's a guy that had so many roles before he even got into MMA. He was a voice of the Detroit Red Wings for a year. He worked as a sideline reporter for the Chicago Bulls during Michael Jordan's dynasty. So like he was just talking about just stick with your craft, and like people recognize it. Like he talked about Michael Jordan. He saw him years later in the locker room when he was working at NHL on ESPN, and Michael Jordan recognized him. He's like, I knew you were always good for doing that sideline stuff. So like if athletes like that recognize them, I think like taking away from that, like if you keep doing the work, like eventually good things will happen and you'll get that recognition eventually. So that's probably something I took away the most from some of my recent interviews.
That's really awesome because it's also encouraging knowing that, someone similar to your craft who loves the game that they're following and reporting on, that other athletes are recognizing that their craft is vital to their, to their success. So that's really dope. That's really dope. My last question, I'll pass it to Fahim. So in regards to, your current, are there anything new on the horizon for you? Are you working on any new projects? Anything that you can kind of let us know what you're up to as of recently?
Yeah, just sticking to this new season now with Toronto FC. It's a lot of excitement there. A lot of Italian players coming in July, so that should be fun. Like Lorenzo Insigne, Euro Cup winner. So looking forward to that. And also with Vibe 105, there's sports, trying to be more consistent with that, and hopefully it leads to something else down the road. But right now it's just about being consistent and looking forward to what's coming up in the coming months.
Well, I hope you get to cover the World qualifying games, because I know right now Canada's playing tonight. It's Wednesday. So by next week, when this comes out, we'll see the outcome, but hopefully Team Canada can get this W. Fahim, take it away, bro.
So, Giancarlo, you actually took some of my thunder. I was going to go with the Italian team, or not the Italians that on the offseason, the TFC picked up, and what kind of impact. But you kind of covered that. So what I will do is go to my second part. My second part of my question was this. So it's York United FC.
Yeah, York United.
They had rebranded. Weren't they another name before? Do I have that incorrect?
Yeah, they originally started as York 9 FC. Their
York
first
9,
season in the CPL.
Okay, so and that's why I love the movement that you make. A lot of your stuff, you're very much like grassroots, very much tapped in to what's happening on the local scene. Nelly J just mentioned the national team. You mentioned the TFC, which is the professional team, but it's great that you got it covered. You have your finger on the pulse of all angles, because even with that York United FC, can you just real quick just let us know how? So when you go, are you going to be going into games now and writing and having a firsthand experience? Because, the pandemic, where now things are opening up, right? So I'm assuming you're going to be there firsthand, correct?
Yeah, they actually, what I think was different with the CPL that they did with MLS, I went to go cover a couple games last year for TFC, and everyone's in the press box. And after the game, everyone's still in the press box, and they ask a player a question over Zoom. In the CPL, when I went last season, they had the player come up after the game in the press box. So we still had the scrum. They had some media remotely. So it was like half and half, and you're at a distance from the player. So it is a safe distance. But other than that, it's been actually, the CPL has gotten everything back to normal. They found a way to make it work. So I was surprised by that. I thought it'd be the other way around. Maybe the CPL would take a little bit of time to figure out what would work. But for the most part, credit where it's due there. They've done a great job with that.
Mm-hmm. I also think they've done a great job in rebranding. Also, the transition from before, I did see their new jerseys, their new kits, with Green Park across the front, with the cool skyline, with the forest. It's a very nice looking kit. If anyone hasn't had a chance, take a look. It's York United FC, and the brand is proper. I think they're, and that's when coming back when I say grassroots, this is the kind of coverage that's not being covered. So it's great that we have people like you on the beat who are actually shedding some light to Canadian Premier League also. So that's awesome.
Yeah. And can you kind of walk us through the FiredUp Network? Because I know you work with them. So what type of network are they, and how can folks kind of find your work on there?
Yeah, so FiredUp Network is all sports, some entertainment as well, NHL, NBA, MLS, NFL, MLB, and it's a collection of shows as well. So on Fridays, I do one with Carmen Asako, who's the York Lions master coach. He was the York 9 FC assistant coach in their first season. But he's one of the best coaches, I think, in college and university soccer in Canada. He's had a hand in coaching some of Canada's best players, like Marc-Anthony Kaye is one of them, who's killing it with the Canadian national team. So just hearing some of the stories he has and his perspectives on the game is great, because you even get to learn of some of the other players. Like Canada right now is in the mainstream news, and everyone's talking about Canada soccer, but he got to work with some of the players that maybe fell under the radar that some people don't really talk about. So it's great to even hear some of those players and bring them up to the forefront a little bit.
That's awesome. And like, how did you get involved with them? Like, did they kind of find you with Vibe? Like, how that happened?
Yeah, I'm still I still don't even know. I think when I was at Vibe, like I got a Twitter notification one day saying like, would you like to contribute in this way? And we're looking for a writer. And me, I was 22, 23 at the time. So final year university. And I thought, okay, this would be something great to do extra. So I continued doing that along with Vibe, which at the time too was also another just chance, because I went to class one day and First University, did an assignment, was thinking a friend of mine, you know what, just maybe hand in the assignment and go a little bit. And then after we had this presentation, and it was Randy Reed who was just in charge of Vibe, he was talking about this radio station on campus, people in the communications, if you want to get involved with it. So I went to that. So I think everything I've done so far has been chance.
Look at that. See, if we don't try, Fahim, if we don't try, right?
Right.
Giancarlo's story is amazing, man. That's dope.
So actually, I got one last before we transition out of this. I just want to ask, because you mentioned writing. Have you had writer's block? You know, like had something where you maybe had a deadline and things, you weren't exactly 100% happy with the work. And how did you get past that if it did happen?
Yeah, it did. I recently, a couple months ago, I started also working with Sportskita, which is based in India. So they have like writers from all over the world there and writing MMA. And I was just thinking of 3 fighters that went from 3 different weight classes that had success, and one of them kept slipping my mind. Like I was just writing it, and it was the last day, so I'm trying to meet my quota there. And as it got published, I just like, it dawned on me, like I totally forgot about this one fighter who actually won a championship and a tournament in 2 different weight classes. It was Vitor Belfort. So yeah, I totally messed that one up, and I ended up writing another article just on why Vitor Belfort, I think, should get consideration for a Hall of Fame run out of that article.
Giancarlo, Google's your friend. Google's your friend.
No, man, honestly, guys, Giancarlo's doing amazing things. Like he's been working on this for years. I know he looks young, he sounds young, but this guy has wisdom behind his belt. So check him out. We're gonna have all the links to the podcast, to Fired Up, everything. So you can keep track, follow him, follow the wrestling world, follow MMA, follow Toronto FC and York United FC as well. So thank you, Giancarlo, for being on the podcast. We're gonna get, I guess, to our next segment for you. Shoot.
All right. So you ready to go to That's Absurd?
That's absurd, Fahim, bro. What was absurd this week? What was absurd?
Calvin Ridley of the Atlanta Falcons in the NFL. He's been suspended for 1 year for betting on his own team in 2022. Absurd.
Hold up. This guy bet on his own team. Like, how they find out? Was it the bet under his name or something? Like, how do you get caught? Because I think other players do it. Let's be real, guys. Let's be real. Okay. I'm sure other players do it, but you don't bet with your own name. So I'm just curious to know, do we know how you got caught? Or that's absurd though. Absolutely absurd. But
Giancarlo, any idea of how? Because when I see it stated that like he violated the policy, but it didn't state if he actually gave the information himself, like gave himself up in some way.
Yeah, I heard about this story, but like I thought it was like one of those things, like maybe it was alleged or something, but like for him to do it, like I think he must use his actual name, which is absurd. Like
yeah,
I don't know how you get away with that. Like I don't know, he could have used an alias, he could have used a family name to do it for him, but yeah, that's kind of hard to do it, outing yourself like that.
Well, what's crazy, right? Like, first of all, to your point, he did admit. So he posted a tweet saying, I bet 1,500 total. I don't have a gambling problem. And then he wrote, I know I was wrong, but I'm getting 1 year, LOL. Yes, you're getting 1 year, LOL. Do not look at how it happened. So apparently, really, so as per Forbes, really tried to place another bet after leaving Florida, and his activity was flagged by Hard Rock and Genius Sports is a UK-based tech platform that distributes play-by-play stats and the data for the NFL to sports betting companies. So Genius Integrity Services are monitors betting across all football games and events. So that's pretty much how he got caught, because the software flagged him. This is just so absurd, because I think, what's interesting for me is that domestic violence, they probably get 3 or 4 days, or 3 or 4 games, right? Maybe 5, but betting gets you a whole year. So it's just something. I know Goodell, he's strongly opposing betting, stuff like that, but I think it's interesting how domestic violence gets less games than betting $1,500. So yeah, players are just unaware of how smart software is. So yeah.
But as you're saying with Goodell and him being really against betting, but he's placed a team in Las Vegas.
Yeah. That's interesting.
So let me throw this out because it's a thought. I'm not so much think it's so much absurd that he betted on his team. You know what I'm saying? Like, if he was betting against his team, I think that would be really absurd. But if someone's betting on their own team to win, should he be penalized if he's betting on himself? Fred VanVleet, shout out. If you're betting on yourself, where's the harm?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. Like, I don't have a problem with him betting on the team to win, but like, I think if it comes down to, like, let's say he's going to bet of how many times his player is going to get tackled or how many interceptions maybe he's going to get. Like, let's say his stat there over under is like 2 interceptions that he's going to cause, and he actually does it and bets after the game. I think that's something different. But like, I'm with you. Like, if he bets on just a team to win, I don't see why he should be penalized for that.
Also, I feel like, can't players bet on other teams, or is this they can't bet at all? I'm just curious to know, because maybe the issue is that he's betting on his own team. But still, like, I think, just like how during the pandemic, they allowed LCBO to be open, even though it was an essential service, but, alcoholics need to drink, right? I just feel like if you're addicted to gambling and you're an athlete, I feel like there should be some type of way that they can still bet, get the needle in there, but have it clean. You know what I'm saying? So whether it's like, you can bet on other sports, not football, but you can bet on basketball and tennis and you know what I mean? So you can still gamble, but not in the NFL. I'm just curious to know if it's because he gambled on the NFL or because they can't gamble at all. You know what I'm saying? So I'm sure, but to me, like, people who gamble, and I think players should be able to gamble in the NFL if they aren't gambling on their own team too. Like, you know what I'm saying? But hey, we've seen the NBA have referees who gambled. I'm sure some still do to this day, and you can't stop these gamblers. Like, they're gonna happen. But Ridley, bro, why would you do a bet? And clearly they found out it was you. You were flagged because you're an NFL player. I don't know if you bet through your phone or through your email, but you enter your credit card information, right, when you're betting on something. So just very absurd that you got caught, bro. Like, absurd.
Yeah.
Especially since he should have known the rules. That's the only thing. So I'll just land there. He should have known the rules, and I guess he's paying the penalty of a year.
1 year.
But 1 year. We'll see.
It's gonna be
Giancarlo,
tough for other teams, though. Like, do you think any other teams now, they're gonna maybe back away from signing him and saying, he's been gambling in the past. How do you know it's not gonna come to our team?
And that's why I think he put the quote out there saying, I don't have a problem. I just bet one time 1,500. But sir, you have a mother, you have a sister, you have friends, have them bet for you, bro. You don't bet in your name. Like, just absurd. All of it absurd. And just out of curiosity, guys, guess the last time a player got caught for gambling.
The year?
How long ago for him?
No, you want the year. Okay, I'll go with
so right now it's 2022. Guess the last time someone got caught for suspended for gambling.
Say 2018.
Okay. What about you?
Does Michael Jordan count, or is that still...
No, for football, NFL.
Yeah, I wouldn't be like surprised. Like, I agree with Fahim. Like, recently, I would say probably like 2017, 2018.
Yeah, so actually more recent, 2019, Arizona Cardinals quarterback Josh Shaw was caught wagering. But before that, it was actually in 1983. Wow. So clearly it's not a common thing to catch players betting, because I think most players, when they bet, they don't put their own name down. But but clearly, you know, there's always one person that gets caught. So there you go.
I guess big picture is, it's not like they're Pete Rose. You know, Pete Rose had the Hall of Fame game, and his betting has affected him to getting into Cooperstown. I don't think Ridley is a Hall of Famer, so I don't think he's really too concerned with this betting and him getting into the Hall of Fame for the NFL. Anybody on that?
Yeah, he's not going to be Hall of Famer.
No, okay. Okay.
Yeah. He will not be on that in that conversation. No.
Well, I guess he can afford to then. All right. So let's put this episode in the books.
In the books. That was episode 84.
84. Yeah.
Yes, y'all. If y'all had a good time, you know the deal. Giancarlo, we'd love to give our guests a chance to do a special shout out. So the floor is yours.
Yeah, just a special shout out to both of you for having me on here. I really appreciate that. It was fun talking to you both, and shout out to all your listeners that tune into this and hopefully enjoy themselves.
Nice.
Thank you, Giancarlo. Well, my shout out is to you. Thank you for all the things that you do. I follow you on Instagram, and you always keep me up to date with all the wrestling news, the drama, the RIPs. We lost some great wrestlers this year. So just thank you for always keeping me up to date in that world. I also want to shout out the Canadian national soccer team, the men's soccer team. You know, they're making us proud. You know, the ladies, they've been killing it. They won gold. And now the men are trying to at least make it into the World Cup. So I wish them all the best tonight during that game. Go ahead, Fahim.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, I want to shout out Giancarlo once again. It's always great having you in here. You provide a good perspective. And also I want to say that, like I mentioned before, and for the culture, I just love the fact that you have, when you say beat writers, and like you have your pulse to what's happening on the scene here, especially in Toronto. We can say even in Ontario. And I want to actually do also shout out to a local team, Etobicoke FC. I think they are. Are you familiar with them, Giancarlo?
I've heard of an Etobicoke team there. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So Etobicoke FC, they have a team and grassroots. Just want to shout them out. With Canadian soccer, it's growing slowly but surely, and it's great that we have these platforms where we can actually give them the shout out. So I want to give them some love on that. Awesome. And on this tip, let's put this episode in the books. That's episode 84.
So guys, please like, subscribe, tell a friend to tell a friend. Fahim.
We are on all platforms if you're looking for us. That's Good Rookies Podcast, episode 84. Giancarlo, once again, thank you very much for coming out.
Thank you, sir.
Way out.
Peace.